1, 2.
You're watching GCTV, Community Access Cable Channel 15 in Greenfield, Massachusetts.
All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.
Welcome to the 192nd regular meeting of the Greenfield City Council on April 17th, 2019. This meeting is being recorded, videotaped, and broadcast. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. I know that GCTV is here. That's it. So the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Sun? Here. Councilor Burson?
Here.
Councilor Ellis?
Present.
Councilor Pyfrom? Here. Councilor Dolan? Here. Councilor Gilmore?
Here.
Councilor Wheeler?
Here.
Councilor Mayo? Here. Councilor Novich is absent. Councilor Mass is absent. President Renaud?
Here.
Vice President Ricketts is absent. And Councilor Stemple? Present. Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And now will be the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could I have a motion to approve the March 20th and April 2nd, 2019 City Council meeting minutes?
Second.
Is there any debate, conversation? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Now is the time for a public comment, and we ask that you keep it to 3 minutes, and it'll be timed. And George, could you please pass the sign-up sheet to me, please? Thank you. Sarah Ahern.
Sarah Ahern, 85 Crescent Street. Good evening, City Councilors. I am here before you this evening to speak in support of the resolution to change the seal of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. As is already clearly stated in this resolution, the reasons for changing the CO, which include the misidentification and misrepresentation of the original inhabitants of this land, the Wampanoag, as plain land tribes from the Midwest because of cultural appropriation. Furthermore, the addition of a headdress worn by Miles Standish on the image, the very man responsible for the systemic slaughter of the Wampanoag people and the pillaging of their lands, as a thank you for helping the first immigrants of this land. I was taught by my mother never to speak to anyone's struggle, so instead I speak up in support and defense of our Wampanoag brothers and sisters. My personal connection to this issue is personal, as I am blessed to have a friend as a direct descendant of the Wampanoag people, Joan Peters Gilmartin, whose lineage includes John Slow Turtle Peters, who not only was a supreme medicine man, but also the executive director of the Massachusetts Commission on Indian Affairs, who established a long partnership with our legislators. I asked Joan the perspective of her people, and her words are as follows. Besides the cultural appropriation of the image, it is further insulting to the Native Americans to depict them as warring savages stereotyped when they were actually peaceful families living on the riches of their native land with well-defined family, social, and self-governing structures. I wish to further ask the council to please support House Resolve 2776 and Senate Resolve 1877, which will form a commission to investigate the features of the seal, with the commission shall consist of the executive director of the Commission on Indian Affairs, 5 members with a direct lineage descent of the tribes native to the Commonwealth. To not include this in the resolution would add further insult to the native population of the Commonwealth, because it sends a clear message. Yes, we want to change the seal, but no, we don't want to afford the right of the actual people impacted to have a say in the matter. In my world, we have a saying, nothing for us without us. So I respectfully ask you to pass this resolution in support of House Resolve 2776 and Senate Resolve 1877. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. PM Kelly?
Good evening, City Council. Pam
Good evening.
Kelly, 32 Spruce Street, is it on?
Oh, wait a second. Sorry.
Okay. Pam Kelly, 32 Spruce Street in Greenfield. I wanted to acquaint you with the fact that we have a history here in this city and in the neighboring city, a long history of being 10 to 12,000 year old village and burial ground. So we have a special responsibility, I think, to take this seriously. If you notice from the thing that we dropped off by your, the flyer we dropped off, Miles Standish sword is hanging over the head of this Native American who doesn't really represent the Native Americans of this period of time at all. So, and the important thing is we are about to approach the year 2020, which is exactly 400 years since 1620, since the Europeans hit Plymouth Rock. And this is a really significant thing because Native Americans are still deeply oppressed by the rules and laws of this country. And we can tell you that the Mashpee Wampanoag, who probably greeted the first colonials, have just had their standing snatched away by the U.S. government as a federally recognized tribe. It continues to this very day. So when we celebrate, or I don't know if we call it celebrate, it might be the National Day of Mourning in Thanksgiving, we don't want it to be a giant protest. And so we're calling on the state to change the flag and seal and take a stand for a real stand for equality and respect for our Indigenous brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Senator Joe Comerford?
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak, and thank you for your service. Thank you to the Greenfield City Council for giving me the opportunity to speak to you in support of the resolution you are considering this evening, brought forward by Councillor Gilmore regarding the Massachusetts State Seal. As you know well, the Massachusetts Seal features a white hand holding a colonial broadsword over the head of a Native American man, with the Latin motto beneath, commonly translated as, quote, peace under the sword. Friends, this is the image our state holds up to the nation as a symbol of what best represents us. And for the people who live within the Commonwealth, our constituents, we know that the state flag is placed prominently in rooms like this, on auditorium stages in all of our public schools, where people of all races, including Native Americans, Native American children, must grapple with it. Every voter guide, every letter, official letter from people like me, to their constituents bears this symbol currently, and on. We could recount many. I have been in many gatherings where people in our Commonwealth have pointed fingers to our neighbors in the South and their Confederate symbols, and yet we in Massachusetts carry a symbol that embodies the subjugation of Native Americans through violence. Articles to support the legislation filed in the Senate by Jason Lewis, and I've co-sponsored there, and by Rep. Sabadosa in the House, to change the flag and seal of Massachusetts are on this year's annual town meeting warrants in Ashfield, Bernardston, Buckland, Coleraine, Conway, Irving, Heath, Leiden, Montague, Northfield, Shelburne, Shutesbury, Sunderland, Warwick, Whately, and many other towns and cities, including Greenfield. Resolutions in support of changing the state flag and seal have been approved already in Amherst, Gill, Lincoln, New Salem, Northampton, Orange, Provincetown, and Wendell, and elsewhere. The momentum is also growing, I'm happy to tell you, in the State House, with nearly 40 state legislators now co-sponsoring H. 2776 and S. 1877. Symbols have weight, they have meaning, they have power. Next year, 2020, is the 400th anniversary of the Pilgrim Landing, when the Wampanoag first welcomed European settlers to their shores and helped them survive their first harsh winter on these lands. And as we approach this important anniversary, we have the opportunity, communities like Greenfield, as folks have said, have this opportunity to consider our history and come together as one and say it's just time to change the Massachusetts flag and seal. We need a new official state symbol that reflects the connection that we want between all people who share the Commonwealth today, and in common awareness of the truths of our past and the hope of justice and peace in the years to come. We have to account for the message conveyed by the official symbol of our state and together create a symbol, and that's what the legislation suggests. We collectively create a symbol that represents our best selves and the values of this Commonwealth. So thank you so much for your consideration tonight. I urge you respectfully, and thank you for your service. I urge you respectfully to vote this favorably. I know that Representative Paul Mark and I are already supporters, and so you might think to yourself, what the heck good is this going to do? But I'll say that I'll be able to take it to the State House and say my constituents, the people who are here in grassroots, in communities important to me, like Greenfield, have charged me with doing this work, and that's a very powerful statement to make. So thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. John Griffin.
Hi, I'm here to talk to you about a different symbol that has weight and power, the speed limit sign. I'm here in support of adopting the resolution to adopt the state law, both Mass General Law 90-17C and 90-18B. 90-17C, as you know, would change the statutory speed limit in thickly settled areas throughout town from 30 to 25 miles an hour. And the motion that's been written to adopt 90-18B would establish a 20-mile-an-hour safety zone on all of Main Street, Bank Row, and the southern portion of Federal Street that's already signed at 20 miles an hour. These resolutions would establish a consistent speed limit throughout town, a safer speed limit. As some of you may know, in Amherst just this past Friday, a young man was struck and killed on North Pleasant Street. That road is signed at 35 miles an hour. Statistics and research demonstrate that pedestrians who are struck by vehicles, when they are struck by vehicles traveling at slower speeds, are more likely to survive that crash than if they're struck by a vehicle traveling at a higher speed. In that case, if the speed limit had been 25 miles an hour, who knows what could have happened. We have areas that are similar in town, especially High Street has areas that are 35 miles an hour up by the co-op. Those are still thickly settled. They have crosswalks. I see folks walking up there every day. I live off of Elm Street. Folks, that road is currently signed at 30 miles an hour, and folks don't even respect the speed limit as it is. I think that the first and most important thing that we can do is show that we support slowing folks down, and the most visible way that we can do that is by changing the speed limits in town. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Dorothy MacGyver.
Hi, Dorothy McIver, 88 Columbus Ave, in Greenfield. So I'm here to support the town council passing this resolution for changing the state seal and the state flag of Massachusetts. I understand that there's been initiatives for the last 35 years to try to make this happen, and it's high time that we do this. It's really important that Greenfield join the other communities in our state who are doing this, and that we show our support to Joe and the people who are trying to get this through our legislature and our Senate. It's time. It really is time to make amends. I don't have a lot to say. Everything's been said pretty much. I agree with everything that has been talked about tonight. You know, it's really high time that this happened. So thank you so much, and I hope you will all vote for this.
Thank you, Dorothy. George Tolonsis.
Is this on? Yes.
Yes.
George Tolumsis, 27 Abbott Street. Please excuse my voice, I'm a little under the weather. Since the March council meeting, I've been reflecting often about the library and zoning decisions made that night. I've written to each of you about my concerns, but I also felt the need to share my thoughts publicly. I am a member of the planning board, but I want to make clear that I'm not in any way representing the planning board. In fact, my interest in this matter goes beyond my current town service on that board. I'm speaking as an actively involved citizen who closely scrutinizes the work of my government representatives. As I ruminated about last month's meeting, I kept coming back to two words that were used repeatedly that night. The first word was courage, which was used to describe the creation of the deal to trade zoning changes for the library funding. But I want to speak to a different kind of courage, the courage it takes to be in a principled minority. For that reason, I want to express my respect for Councilors Sund, Alice, Leonovich, and Pyfrom, who, despite the room being filled with vocal library supporters, stuck to their principled position to not vote for the library funding. And speaking of principled minorities, though I personally was in support of the library, the most heartening moment of the evening for me was Councilor Stempel's lone, agonized vote against the changes to the major development review portion of the zoning ordinance. My reaction to that vote is related to the other word that was used frequently that evening, compromise. There are two meanings to the word compromise. The first is an agreement or settlement of a dispute that is reached by each side making concessions. And that was the way it was being used that evening. But what I experienced about the process that night was the second meaning of compromise, the acceptance of standards that are lower than is desirable. I say this because the rush to alter the MDR on the artificial library timetable seemed to clearly short-circuit a true democratic process. Zoning is a crucial tool to counterbalance unfettered market forces so that we retain some control about the shape, the future, the fate of our community. I would suggest that something as complicated and multifaceted as the MDR should be altered only after thoughtful and thorough deliberation, looking at facts, research, and considering a range of options. This hurried and compromised process left me feeling that we sold a bit of our civic soul. But I believe that it's possible to redeem this process by responsibly revisiting the MDR provisions and doing a more fine-tuned analysis with cooler heads and less pressure to rush to judgment. Such a reconsideration would also afford the public to provide more informed input without the zoning change being entwined with another issue. Many who spoke to the combined process only referenced the French King overlay aspect, not obviously recognizing that the MDR was also in play. Being for the deal didn't strike me as the voice of a truly informed and empowered populace. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, George. Crystal Zimmer.
Crystal Zimmer, 10.5 Stanley Street in Greenfield. First of all, I would like to say that I support the changing of the seal on the flag, just to throw that in there. But I'm actually here tonight to ask that you consider the severe cuts in education proposed by the mayor's budget as short-sighted and devastating for the future of our city and schools. I watched the Ways and Means Committee meeting last week, and I had planned to speak there. However, my children had an event at their school, and the CPAC was also holding a special event that night. So I learned a few things. First, that last year's city budget changed after the approved budget was revised throughout the year. And some of this was based on incomplete or misinformation. And based on that information, you very generously gave the school committee more than they had requested last year. However, because of the new information, they're now realizing that that may not have happened if the mayor's office had given correct information. But now, as I learned in that meeting, the information about the operational budget increases were not accurately shared during the library deliberations, and now the city has a new library, which again, I was never against. I'm just worried about the debt of it, and a new fire station, and an underfunded school system to consider. As a member of the CPAC and a parent of 2 children, one on the spectrum, and a teacher, I am well within my right and credentials to say that underfunding the schools next year will be a grave mistake. The mayor's budget doesn't even level the schools to where they were last year. The increases requested this year were necessary. In fact, the schools received a grant for over $100,000 to help bring trauma-informed practice, training, and desperately needed behavioral programs to the district. The school committee's budget included a request to fund an additional board-certified behavioral analyst, which was not covered with this grant. Without this position, this grant will be wasted and nearly impossible to implement effectively, if at all. In fact, this budget proposal, cutting $1.3 million from the school budget, would cut staffing and program in schools, making us far less qualified to handle the already struggling special education populations in our school. I understand that you have a lot to consider in a citywide budget, but our children are the future of our town, and they return with their children. They are the future business owners, voters, and city council people. Or they could be the future people struggling to find jobs, feeding the opioid crisis, and leaving to find better opportunities elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. That is everybody who has signed up for public comment. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Oh, you got beat, Wesley.
Well, we have to hobble you up here first, but. Good evening. I'm Annie Hassett. I'm a native of Massachusetts, 21 Leonard Street. I'm also here to speak about the flag. You know, I was thinking tonight, I was actually feeling as saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I was hearing, with liberty and justice for all. For all. Now, Rudy, isn't that the flag there? Is it there? Yeah. Could it be possible that we could unfold that so other people that didn't know what it looked like? I would like to see it myself personally, please. If you would just, so I could see what we're talking about. Yeah. So thank you so much. I'm here because I'm asking people to feel with their heart instead of just think with their mind. I just find it appalling that people that welcomed Europeans to Plymouth Rock eliminated them. You know, we don't have to go into all the things that we've done. But this is a time of great change in our world, and I know I have a lot of faith in the people that sit in this room, people I've known for a long time, and right here at the council, that we can take this one step for humanity and make things be different. I have something short to read. I wrote this a little while ago. I found it just stuffed in with some papers. I hope you can take this change to heart with this flag thing. I think we can. How much can you love? The world needs you. How much can you lend a hand? It takes a different point of view. How much can you feel the pain and keep the love light flowing? How much can you change your heart and keep forgiveness growing? The time has come where standing still has not become an option. While we're walking through the sands of change, the truth we've not forgotten. Of all of those who've gone before, the trail ahead is blazing. For truth and love shall conquer hate, and peace will be the answer. All is one, and one is all, as on and on, the dancer. Thank you so much for hearing me.
Thank you, Annie. Wesley?
I'm Wesley Blixt, 39 Orchard Street. And I just wanted to say very briefly that what you're being asked to do tonight is a really marvelous thing. What Greenfield is being asked to do is a truly marvelous thing. It's a wonderful opportunity. It's an opportunity to simply do the right thing. It's something that others have noted we've been called on to do for quite some time now. And it is long overdue. There is no price to pay for this. Whatever price there is has been paid by our Native American brothers and sisters for centuries. This is a free pass in some ways to do something truly, truly good. I think that the only other price that there may be to be paid is letting go of our nostalgia for a symbol that we should have been able to let go of a long, long time ago. Nostalgia for something that never should have happened to begin with. For something that I think we need to look inside ourselves and simply give ourselves a permission to feel deeply, deeply sad about. And it is deep. It was a truly, truly, truly terrible thing that I'm not sure many of us have allowed ourselves to internalize. And the only last thing I'd like to do is, it's been mentioned to me that this matter is at the bottom of the agenda, and I was wondering if you might consider moving it up on the agenda, in that there are any number of folks here tonight who perhaps can't or won't be able to stay around until the end of the meeting. So I'm wondering if that might be something that you'd consider. But thank you.
Thank you. Just as a point of information, it's the second motion on the agenda, so.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. But I just.
No, my procedural mistake.
No, that's okay. I wasn't sure myself. Anyone else? Seeing none. Oh, well, come on up. And so we just ask you state your name and address, please, for the record.
I'm Nancy Stark. I live in Shelburne, Mass.
Nancy.
And I think the other speaker who said we're holding on to nostalgia hit on an important point. We're looking at a very old-fashioned symbol. It has just gotten out of time, and we need to bring it up to date. It would be very easy to say, oh, just let it go. Bringing it up to date would be too much trouble. But I think the trouble that it would take to bring it up to date would be well worth it. Thank
you,
you.
Nancy. Okay, we don't have any public hearings or second readings tonight. And so now we're going to ask for communications from the mayor, city officers, and town employees.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President and councilors.
Good evening, Mayor Martin.
Just a couple of observations. First, I did sign the award from the state today for the Mass State Library Association. It was signed and sent, and we received acknowledgement of receipt. There are many more steps to go in this whole process, and we'll work those out as they come down week to week. We received an email. I want to address an email from Councilor Ellis, and it was sent on 4/29 on Friday afternoon. Monday's a holiday. It was sent to us by the city clerk today, this morning. I'd just like to read it to you and tell you what that entails. Can you please request a munis detail report of all budget line items for fiscal year 2018 and fiscal year 2019, showing all the booked entries, journal, invoices, etc. I would like to see specifically the backup and transactions associated with each line item. Can you please submit this request to the mayor, and should we not hear back within 48 hours, please file it as a Freedom of Information Act request, as this information is time sensitive for me to be able to formulate my questions regarding the overall budget. This is quite an extreme request. In the immediate research, as I said, we got it today, 48 hours would be tomorrow. There are over 1,000 pages in this request. It is not a regular report that Councilor Ellis is asking for. It is a printed, as a printed report, it's over 1,000 pages. So what we've decided to do, whether Councilor Ellis wants to file a FOIA or not, and then we also have other protections within the FOIA law. But what we'll check with technology, Fernando, tomorrow, is to file it into a drive, a Google Drive, with access by all the councilors. So you can read through the thousands of pages in the transactions, if that's your pleasure to do so. So just want to say that we're all pretty busy. The councilors are busy with their lives, and the employees of the town are busy with their lives and their work. So we feel this might be the easiest way to do it. We also have the open checkbook. You can check on that anytime you want. You won't get the detail, the backup information, which is held in the accountant's office. We've had a similar type request during one of the lawsuits against the city. So it's just in particularly familiar in that way. So we can provide that G drive for access by councilors, and as I said, the open checkbook is on the website. Any citizen, anyone in the area who wants to go to the website can read the actual daily transactions. The Chapter 70, the House budget, the House budget produced, I believe it was $250 million increase in Chapter 70. It sounds like a lot of money. For Greenfield, the share of that, which I think provides great evidence as the failure of the formula, would be about $59,000. Then you can ask anyone who is in the school system or familiar with this school committee and the superintendent and others, $59,000 doesn't really help out that much. So what would it take to provide some funds for Greenfield education in Chapter 70? Can you imagine the amount of money that would have to be raised for Chapter 70 for that feeble formula to provide any substantial funds for Greenfield? So I am in great support of the Senate's version of providing more funds up to $1 billion. I think the finding new money all of a sudden to replace cutbacks at the federal level are bringing some serious questions to others. If this newfound money is available, well, then why haven't we already provided it for our education? I'd also like to say that there's a promise that's in the process of being broken. That promise has to do with the gambling money from the 2 resort casinos. There is only one open now. The other one that is not a resort casino. There are no promises made on that. The Wynn Casino isn't open yet, so that's not providing any revenue. But the MGM Casino is in Western Mass, and the funds raised in Western Mass are going to Boston. And there are, with Governor Patrick's promise, which is the government's promise, to provide funds for a number of different areas, including education. So I would like to alert our representatives, Representative Paul Mark and Senator Comerford, that please take a good look at what was made as a promise several years ago during the licensing of these casino resorts, and see if we can stick to a promise that some of those funds come not only back to Western Mass, but to the designated areas in which the different financial revenue pots they were promised. And lastly, my comment will be on the availability of funds that were promised in other laws of the state, particularly in Chapter 76, Section 20. Those funds were promised and by law and have not been funded for years. That has to do with special ed education, relocation of foster children, and relocation of students brought by DCF in and out of our community. That's an expensive proposition. We are always handling new students and any student-age child in Greenfield. It continues to cost us between, or at least over $800,000 annually. So that's something that I wish we could all get behind at some point in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the mayor, Councilor Alice?
I actually don't have a question, but I do just wanted to clarify something. In the email that I sent, I wasn't asking for anything that was overly difficult. What I was looking for was just a response that the email had been received, because in the past I had a situation where I had to follow up 3 times and still didn't get the information, had to file a FOIA. I was simply looking for an acknowledgement within 48 hours that you had received my email. I wasn't actually looking for the information within that 48 hours. And I think the G Drive is a wonderful idea. We've done it before and it's worked well. So I appreciate you setting that up. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Councilor Sund.
Yes, I seen the chief, fire chief isn't here. I got a question to ask about what's, when they come back from a fire, you're supposed to clean up or decontaminate, get all the contamination from either the old plaster or whatever. Do you know if there's any place they can get cleaned and everything in the firehouse right now, so they don't get any diseases or anything from the stuff that sheetrock and stuff like that fall over them?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. I don't have the precise details, but there is a decontamination area to prevent cross-contamination throughout the rest of the building from asbestos or any other hazardous waste they're dealing with. The uniforms are placed in a special area and then they move into their other uniforms. But I'll relay that to Chief Strand and have him send you a couple paragraphs on that.
recognize?
Yes, Finance Director.
Thank you. It's not often that we talk about good things. So I would like to bring up the fact that we've had a payroll conversion going on for 3 years in the town. And just this past April 1, it was finalized and we moved over to Munis. And it went as smoothly as you can expect. It was not perfect. But what I want to do is really commend town employees Quinn Jakin and Angela Desroche, as well as school employee Loretta Doolittle. They went above and beyond in making this happen. And it will be very good for everyone in the long run, reporting-wise. So, again, they did an outstanding job.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about the Munis? Oh, okay. I think that's it. Thank you. GSET.
Good evening, councilors. I'm John Luntz.
Good
I'm the
evening.
general manager of GSET. Hi. I think the first thing I want to say is that this marks either 16 or 17, I forgot to count before I came, months of revenue growth. So every month we're adding to the base of GSET customers. By the time we meet again, we should be over 1,000 customers for GSET. And we've had a number of very good months. This has been a particularly good one because we had a very successful launch of TV this month. We're fairly far ahead of our projections. It's early days yet, and we would like to have a little more time before we see exactly what our trends are. But we're going to end up having a very strong month because of it. In addition, we are finishing out the last bits of the core build. We should take about another month to get that entirely finished. I was very pleased that we added both Oak Courts, and Elm Terrace in the last month because we're trying to working in development areas, particularly ones that sometimes have underground wiring, can be challenging, and it can be an engineering challenge to do it cost effectively. So we wanted to start in areas where we could have a more traditional installation, but we think it's important to get to all those developments because we want everyone in town to have equal access to GSET and the savings that it can bring to people. So we'll take about another month to finish that build out, and then after that we will finally get to what people have asked us to, which is jumping outside of the core and to begin building both north and south. That's because of a lot of good work from our outside plant crew and from our technical crew. And I also want to just lastly mention that we're on the verge of a large technical upgrade to our control systems overall and to our internal systems that will finally allow us to put paying by a portal on the work list so we can get to that, because you're right, that's something that we do think we need to do. So we're making some good progress. We continue to just keep our eyes on what our mission is and move forward.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councilor Alice?
I don't have that question. Thank you. Obviously, it's early to know some of these numbers, but the incremental revenue from the TV, is it too early to know what the average incremental revenue is on?
It's going to be multiples of what our normal revenue is. It's hard to say because there's always a big flurry in the beginning where you have early adopters. So we know that, and we know what that number is, and it's a good number, but we don't know what the actual sort of regular take rate will be after that's over, because we've been installing for about 6 days. So it started out very well. We just need more time to know what the actual rate is. It will certainly be a significant help.
And do you have a target, like ARPU rate, for what the increase will be over the plans you were offering versus the plan with the TV? And if you don't, that's okay. If maybe we could just meet and talk about that, but.
Sure, you're welcome anytime.
I'm just I'm really just sort of curious at how much it's going to bolster what we're making currently by having the TV. And it's not because I'm just curious.
We tend to track that within an overall market penetration rate, and we just put everything together because really the number that's most important for us is getting to a level of market penetration within the town of Greenfield. We've just gone over an average of 20% market penetration in a year, which is pretty darn good. And it will certainly help boost us up. Our real goal is about 35%. And I'm happy to talk to you whenever. I can't quite tell you that yet because I don't know what the trend will be. So until I do, any number I give you would just be a guess.
Yeah. One more. Gross revenues per month as of the last time you were
We'll
report.
get to about 60, a little more than that this month. So we've risen rapidly in the last few months.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Gilmore.
So I have some friends downtown who are still looking for commercial access. Do you have a time frame on that?
We do. It depends on where they are. Are you talking about Main Street? Sure. So essentially to the west of Federal Street, we're able to provide commercial access. There is an issue to the east of Federal Street with some damage to the fibers, which means we have to pull them all out of the conduit. That area of conduit is really, really overstuffed with electrical and other wiring. So the very act of trying to pull the fiber through it damaged some. So we have to clear it out and then figure out a way to reinstall it without just damaging it again. So that's a particular area near the firehouse and the library is a particular area of problem. And to be honest, we haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. We think if we do the same thing will happen. So we have to figure out another way to do it. We're looking at a couple of different things coming at it from different angles, but we haven't figured that part out yet.
Councilor Wheeler.
Hi, John. I've had a few questions by constituents and neighbors, so I was just wondering if you could provide any kind of update on when either the Power Square, Power Court area or the Solar Village, Pine Ridge Estates area might be lit up.
That's part of coming out of the core, which will happen later this spring. There are two possible ways to get there. One is to go down under along Deerfield Street and over Meridian. That would take us right by Power Court. The other way, which might prove to be easier, is to jump down at the base of Main Street, and that would let us go up River and reach back over to Power Court that way. Rivers and the Green River we have to find a way to jump over that lets us jump from town-controlled land to town-controlled land. And we may end up doing both. The issue at the base of Main Street is the bridge there is owned by the Department of Transportation, and that always takes a really long time. So I think we'll likely choose the other option where we can jump, and even if we have to pull a little longer to get there, that's probably how we'll do it. So I would say late spring, early summer.
Councilor Ellis.
You just mentioned something about town land to get across the Green River. So we can only run on town land or?
Oh, no, I'm sorry if I gave that
I must have
impression.
misunderstood.
It's just easier and faster. Yeah, we can certainly work with the state and work with whoever we need to.
Oh, okay.
We just try to find the passive least resistance if we can.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Communications from the Superintendent of Schools and School Committee.
Sure. Hi,
Hi, everyone. I'll start off with a little bit about the school committee. At the subcommittee level, we have ongoing work with the MASC on our policy review. We recently nearly completed policy section B and will soon be reviewing policy section C. At the Health and Safety and Facilities Subcommittee, the group will be reviewing an act to ensure safe drinking water in schools. That's Senate 500 and House 774. We have ongoing negotiation with Unit A and Unit C. And the Budget and Finance Subcommittee at a meeting next week will be reviewing a proposal to bring out-of-district special education transportation in district. At the full committee level, at our most recent meeting, we attempted to elect a new member to fill a vacant seat, but we were tied in all of our votes. The issue was tabled until our next meeting. We heard from the Greenfield High School staff regarding the addition of civics curriculum to begin next year. And at our upcoming meeting, we look forward to a report from the Greenfield Middle School, as well as policy section D first reading, that's D as in dog, and we will deliberate again on a potential new member.
Thank you.
Good evening. I will add a few comments to what the school committee chair has shared with you. First, I would like to make the committee aware, it was mentioned earlier, let the council know, I apologize, that we did receive a $105,000 grant from the governor's office, and this is for improving student access to behavioral and mental health services. It does not fund any positions, but it does strengthen the work of our district teams to put together school-based and district support staff and to improve the services that we can provide, including partnerships with clinical and support options, which we actually bill directly through their insurance right in the school buildings. So we've done a lot to provide what's called wraparound services, and this grant helps us extend that work significantly. And the good work that we've done in building a way to support and implement that was acknowledged through this award. We're also launching the Superintendent's Health Education Task Force, and we are looking for parent members as well as community members. At this point, we have a number of expert members of our community who are looking to advise on expanding our health education curriculum in our middle school to support research-based interventions that meet the needs of our middle school students. So that work is beginning. We are on school vacation this week. We hope anybody who has children in the schools is enjoying quality family time and that teachers are taking some much needed time off, but there is work ongoing. We are installing snow guards and other security and safety updates at the buildings this week with students being out. And the central office is, of course, still here. There was a question about the Chapter 70 funding and the budget coming through. I don't have access to all of my information in front of me, but I do think it's important to note that there was a significant increase in the Chapter 70, and we are expecting a significant increase in that. My understanding or my memory of this is FY19 is around 12.2 million, and FY20 in the governor's budget was around 13.3 million, and that the most recent increase from the House Ways and Means proposal is another 50 or so thousand increase from there. So again, I don't have those numbers in front of me. I could send them to the full council. Obviously, we're watching this closely as it comes through, but I think we have an opportunity here for a significant difference in state aid coming to Greenfield, and that is what the school committee's budget was based on when it came through the school committee. As I mentioned, we are on school vacation this week, but I do want to make you aware of a couple of important upcoming dates. Next week, I'm going to invite you to the Federal Street tree planting on April 26th. Of course, we will also be at the Ways and Means presentation on Thursday. The Greenfield High School Book to Movie Club is hosting another free showing at the Greenfield High School Auditorium. That's been a very successful event for the community. We hope you will join us for The Hate You Give on the 26th. May 9th, we are being acknowledged at the State House with 2 awards for Federal Street and the middle school with the Healthy Start Award. This is a recognition of the number of students that take advantage of the free breakfast after the bell program here in Greenfield, and the high participation number of students that really rely on that for healthy school nutrition here. May 10th, we're hosting our annual Film Fest, and we're expanding it to an arts showcase. We hope you can join us. It's a free event. It's at the high school. And we'll be back here on May 29th for what I hear will be an important budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Alice?
May 29th, I think, is at the high school, though, so not here.
Even better.
I just wanted to make sure you
Thank
didn't. I showed up at the high school tonight before I got here, so. In our capital budget, there's some money for the roof at the middle school. Do you know what the issue is with the roof? And just briefly discuss that, and also if we've looked at, I thought we had a warranty on that roof, so I didn't know if we've explored that avenue or if that has expired, so.
I'm not going to go into any great detail on the roof, except to say that as far as I know, the roof at the middle school has been an issue for a very long time, and that the warranty in this particular instance was either exhausted or doesn't apply. That was the first thing that's always looked at. And it's been sort of pernicious and ongoing. This is a good time to tackle that, and I certainly support that coming through capital.
Any other questions? Councilor Burson?
Can you explain to me what the plan is to break the tie between the 3 on one side and 3 others? How are you going to resolve that?
That's a great question. Frankly, I don't know. The issue was tabled, so it'll come up again, and we'll see where we're at that point. I think that the committee will need to consider what options they may like to take if we are again tied.
I could suggest one to you if you'd like.
Go right ahead.
I'm really glad there are 4 people in the community that care enough to come forward and speak to the school committee. Those of you that are in public office know that it's a lot of work, can be thankless, but is tremendously important. And we thank you for the roles that you play, especially during budget season. And I would like to think that people give this a little more thought than the tossing of a coin. I know that you all worked hard to get where you are, and you take your responsibility seriously. So we are hopeful that there will be another school committee member joining soon.
There is tremendous legal precedent for tossing a coin. It was not presented in a flip manner. As a matter of fact, I'm sure the Charter Commission, that's exactly what I did to solve a situation which was similar to yours. In any event, good luck.
Councilor Gilmore?
So if you wanted to do it the military way, you go by rank and then age and then height. But I'm curious, who were the 2 finalists? Are you allowed to say?
There were not any finalists. We had a tie 3-3 vote on all candidates.
It's on GSET, not GSET, GCTV. I always do that.
Yes. Okay. If you'd like to watch our vote, it is on GCTV.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your vacation. Okay, so we're now moving on to the part that everybody's waiting for. Motions, orders, and what did I forget? Oh, sure, Councilor Alice.
And they're gone, but do they use Robert's Rules of Order in meetings? Is that you? Okay. I think there may be an answer in there, and I'll try to find that for you.
Thank you, Councilor Alice. Motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilor Gilmore.
The City Council move that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council accepts Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 90, Section 18B, as described and attached Exhibit A. Chapter 90, Motor Vehicles and Aircraft, Section 18B, Establishment of Designated Safety Zones for Ways in City or Town Violation. Section 18B, notwithstanding Section 18 or any other general or special law to the contrary, the City Council, the Transportation Commission of the City of Boston, the Board of Selectmen, Park Commissioners, the Traffic Commission, or Traffic Director of a city or town that accepts this section in the manner provided in Section 4 of Chapter 4 may, in the interest of public safety and without further authority, establish designated safety zones on, at, or near any way in the city or town which is not a state highway, and with the approval of the department if the same is a state highway. Such safety zones shall be posted as having a speed limit of 20 miles per hour. The operation of a motor vehicle in such zone and speeding exceeding the speed limit established under this section shall be a violation of Section 17. I'm sorry about that. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Report from committee.
I thought this one was tabled for next month, correct? No? Okay, then this one passed unanimous positive. I'm confusing this with the other one, I'm sorry.
Councilor Wheeler.
No, hold on, I made a mistake. This one, we struck the resolution in its entirety. Like I said, I'm confusing this one with the other one. They were
Sure.
introduced on the same day. The numbers are very similar.
Okay.
So this one was struck in its entirety, and we're bringing it back to the table later. I'm sorry.
Okay. Councilor Wheeler has something to say about that.
With all due respect, Madam Chair, I believe that both orders were passed with, both this and the other order were passed with unanimous positive recommendation. This one was amended to remove the resolution.
What's going
on? However, speaking as the counselor who put these forward and shepherded them through committee, I believe for the purposes of discussion that it would be more time efficient to have this discussion around both resolutions at the same time, because it's a fairly detailed discussion and it will there's just multiple elements. I'm happy to discuss it now, but I'm going to motion to table at this time.
Second.
Motion to table and has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion has been tabled. Councilor Gilmore.
The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council approves the attached resolution titled Resolution in Support of Changing the State Flag and Seal of Massachusetts as Exhibit A. Do I have to read the resolution?
No, I don't think so.
And to give credit where credit is due, it was Councilor Dolan who initially brought this up. I think there was confusion because I was the chair and he wasn't there that night.
Okay, and so do we have a second? Okay, motion's been made and seconded. So what is the report from committee?
So this passed unanimously with an amendment. I'd like to speak to that amendment, if you don't mind, or I can wait till we open it up for debate.
No, debate's open now. If you want to make the amendment, if you want a motion to amend and then speak to the amendment.
I don't want to make the amendment. I am asking the council to pass this resolution in its original form.
Okay.
The amendment was to remove the specifics. Councilor Mass amended that we remove the aforementioned resolve HD 2968 and SD 1495 in the general court, and that the Joint Committee on State Administration and Regulatory Oversight, after holding a public hearing on the resolve, report out favorably, and if the legislation shall pass, that the governor shall sign it and work with the members of the general court to ensure its enactment. So it passes the sort of the spirit of the resolution, but it takes out the specific law that we're talking about. I think that because the citizens of Greenfield brought this to us through Councilor Dolan and asked us to support this specific piece of legislation, I think by removing it, it's sort of insincere and smarmy.
Okay, At this point, just because of the audience, I do feel the need for the resolution to be read in its whole. It's incredibly small print, so somebody with eyes. And Councilor Gilmore? Yes. I think you've got good eyes. So for the sake of those watching and for everybody here, the resolution is going to be read in its entirety.
Madam President?
Yes.
What page are we on in the?
16.
Okay, thank you. I was 2 pages away. There we go.
Okay. Resolution in support of changing the state flag and seal of Massachusetts. Whereas the history of the state of Massachusetts is replete with instances of conflicts between the European colonists and the Native American nations of the region, who first extended the hand of friendship to the colonists on their shores in 1620 and helped them to survive starvation during the settlers' first winters on this land. Whereas members of the Native Nation, for whom the state of Massachusetts is named, were ambushed and killed by Miles Standish, first commander of the Plymouth colony in April of 1623, barely 2 years after the Pilgrims arrived on their shores. Whereas the naked colonial broadsword above the head of the native man on the Massachusetts flag and seal is copied from Miles Standish's own broadsword, borrowed from the Pilgrim Hall in Plymouth by the illustrator Edmund Garrett in 1884. Whereas the belt binding the native man's cloak on the flag and seal is modeled after a belt worn by Metacomet, known to the English as King Philip, who was among the Wampanoag leaders who resorted to a mutually destructive war in 1675 through 76 in defense of native lands against colonial encroachment. Whereas the proportions of the body of the native man in the flag and seal were taken from a native skeleton kept in Winthrop, the bow modeled after a bow taken from a native man shot and killed by a colonist in Sudbury in 1665, and his features taken from a photograph of an Ojibwe chief from Great Falls, Montana, considered by the illustrator to be a fine specimen of an Indian, though not from Massachusetts. Whereas Native nations within the boundaries of Massachusetts were kept in a state of serfdom and their members legally considered incompetent wards of the state, and the nonviolent action of the so-called Mashpee Rebellion of 1833 led to the granting of native self-rule by the Massachusetts legislature in 1834, as if the sovereign right of native self-government was the Massachusetts legislature's to confer. Whereas Native Americans were legally prohibited from even setting foot in Boston from 1675 until 2004, when that law was finally repealed. Whereas the 400th anniversary of the landing of the colonists by Plymouth Plantation, which gave rise to the long chain of genocidal wars and deliberative policies of cultural destruction against Native nations of this continent, is approaching in the year 2020, affording every citizen of the Commonwealth a chance to reflect upon his history and come to a new awareness of a better relationship between the descendants of the Euro-colonial immigrants and the Native nations of these shores. Whereas Native Americans have long suffered the many abuses of racism, the appropriation of their symbols, the diminution and pollution of their ancestral lands, and the encroachment of their cultural lifeways. Whereas the town of Greenfield, settled in 1753, shows a rich Native history going back 12,000 years and has put in place a Native American burial ground ordinance. And whereas the town of Greenfield has within the township a protected 67-acre Native village and burial grounds at Wissatonawag. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council of Greenfield, Massachusetts hereby adopt this resolution in support of HD.2968 and SD.14295, a resolve providing for the creation of a special commission relative to the seal and motto of the Commonwealth, and request the Representative Paul Mark and Senator Joe Comerford continue their strong advocacy and support for the aforementioned resolve HD 2968 and SD 1495 in the General Court, and that the Joint Committee in State Administration and Regulatory Oversight, after holding a public hearing on the resolve, reported out favorably, and if the legislation shall pass, that the governor shall sign it and work with members of the General Court to ensure its enactment.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Councilor Dolan.
Can I clarify one thing first? So we are discussing the resolution in its initial form as it was submitted to committee?
That's correct.
Okay. I do have a couple of comments, if I may.
Of course.
So first of all, thank you, Councilor Gilmore, but I'd like to pass the appreciation on to the folks in the community, most notably David Detmold, but there was a whole crew working on this. Really, I've just shepherded through the process, so I appreciate the folks who brought this forward. I would like to make some housekeeping amendments, if I might. First, I would like to replace the 2 instances of HD 2968 with the new bill number H2776.
Is that okay as a friendly amendment?
SD 1495, again, 2 instances with S1877. And then, in the spirit of tonight, the 3 instances where it says Town of Greenfield or Town Council of Greenfield, replace that with City of Greenfield and City Council of Greenfield.
Friendly amendment, okay? Yes. Okay. Any other discussion? I just want to say thank you for everybody who came out and spoke on this, and I always think this is a civil rights issue, and civil rights issues are moral issues, and it's our job to try to right these historic wrongs, and this is one of those historic wrongs. And so we're trying to do our part, and I'm very pleased to hear that this is not just a resolution that may just not go anywhere. It sounds like our state, especially our very own state delegation from our county, is doing something about it. So with that said, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Councilor Gilmore.
Sorry, I needed a drink after that. All right, so we're page 17, correct?
That's correct.
City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the City Council Rules of Procedures, subsection 565-8, Rule 8, Order and Disposition of Business, Agenda A, Section 1, as follows. Number 1, call to order. Number 2, roll call of members. Number 3, pledge of allegiance, voluntary. Number 4, approval of minutes from previous meeting. Number 5, communications from superintendent of schools and school committee. Number 6, communications from mayor, city officers, and employees. Number 7, communications from other city employees as needed by invitation. Number 8, public comment. Number 9, public hearings. Number 10, motions, orders, and resolutions. 11, presentation of petitions or similar papers. 12, report of committees. 13, unfinished business. 14, old business. 15, new business. 16, motions for reconsideration. And 17, adjournment.
Motion's been made and seconded. Report from committee.
This was passed unanimously, and it was passed not at our last meeting, but the one prior to. We thought that by moving communications from all of the town employees, the mayor and the schools, ahead of town public comment would allow for our city employees who don't need to be here for the entirety of our meeting to leave after. We do have some meetings where public comment goes very long and late.
Yeah.
And we all feel very bad for our superintendent.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the new order to be voted on? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Councilor Gilmore.
The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the Code of the City of Greenfield, deleting the word town and inserting in its place the word city throughout the document.
Motion's been made and seconded. Report from committee.
This was unanimous positive, and it's a housekeeping issue.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Councilor Gilmore.
The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council amend the City Council Rules of Procedure, Chapter 565, by deleting the word town and inserting in its place the word city throughout the document.
Motion's been made and seconded.
This is also unanimous, also positive, and also it's just a housekeeping measure.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Presentation of petitions and similar papers. A report of committees. So we'll start with A&O because you were kind of the star of the night. Is there anything else coming up that we should be aware of? I know that you're going to bring back the, you're going to re-vote on it in May, and then for our regular council meeting, we're going to be able to vote on the speed
Yes,
factor.
and to my knowledge, that's the only thing that's really in the pipeline at the moment. Is there?
Councilor Wheeler's behind you, trying to get your attention, or my attention.
I would ask the town clerk's office revisit the tape, and if not, I would like to listen to the tape, because my memory was that they were both passed unanimously and not tabled in any way.
No, it's not that they weren't passed, it's that Councilor Mass thought that we didn't have the time to get it to tonight's agenda. So it's not that there's any.
Okay.
Oh, so,
I know
so
the
we're saying it will
resolution-
come back in,
Right. The
Michael, okay.
resolution we were going to revisit at a later date, but the
No.
other two were going to come up in May.
no, the resolution is thrown out.
Okay. And that was the only thing we had to worry about then.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now that we have that settled. Councilor Wheeler, Chair Wheeler, I know you've been very busy with Ways and Means. Is there anything you wish to tell us?
No, we've had 2 budget meetings so far, if I'm counting correctly, and feels like more than that, but they've been productive, and I encourage any councilors and members of the public who are interested in the budget process to go back and watch the tape on GCTV. We've covered finance, executive, and police and fire, amongst other things, and we'll continue next Thursday.
Okay. And that's the schools on Thursday?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's probably going to be a long one. Chairperson Stemple.
Thank you. So on Tuesday of last week, we had our joint committee with CRE, where we hosted Dr. Eve Salomon Fernandez, the president of GCC. It was a productive conversation. I think what I heard and what I learned from that conversation was it really directed my thinking towards where my committee's best use of time could be spent. And we talked a lot about entrepreneurship. And so moving forward, I plan to bring together other leaders in the community, thinking of things like the Greenfield Business Association, the Community Development Corporation, as well as the Franklin County Chamber of Commerce, as such, to create conversations about how we as a council and a city can do more to support not just small business, but those who are on the verge of creating businesses, and keeping those doors open and providing resources to those people, and hoping that they will choose to locate not just their businesses, but their families here.
Thank you.
And also we have, we tabled all the TIF conversations because I believe the mayor's office needed to go back on that. So we have a TIF meeting on Monday, April 22nd. I'm not sure. I don't think we have a location yet for that meeting. And then thereafter, from that meeting, we will hear more from the TIFs, from Director, from MJ at our next meeting in May as well. So a little bit of housekeeping there, I guess.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. That's all for our committees. Any unfinished business? Any old business? I have new business, sorry. Thought you were going to get out of here. Not so quick. I have a motion that the Greenfield, it's a resolution that the Greenfield City Council encourage Stop and Shop to settle a fair and equitable contract with their striking union employees now.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Well, I'll discuss why I made it. The workers have been out now for, it's going to be a week tomorrow, and they're not getting paid. They're out there. If you talk to the union members, mostly for newer workers who are coming, that they don't want to see working conditions and wages and benefits decrease. And it's also, this is taking a toll. The longer this strike goes on, the longer it's going to take a toll on our residents and their families who work at Stop and Shop, as well as not even in Greenfield, but the entire county. These are good jobs, and the longer a strike goes on, there's nothing good that can happen. So I think it's important for every city and town across Massachusetts to take this resolution and to urge a settling of the contract as soon as possible. And as you know, it's Easter weekend, and this is a really bad time to not have a lot of grocery stores to go to. So I hope that they get this resolved soon. And it's Passover. And yes. So any other discussion? Councilor Gilmore.
I'd also like to bring up that I know people who aren't really actively involved in workers' rights and the labor movement. Having unionized employees in a community raises wages even for non-unionized employees, because it gives people it gives them other options for employment. So that helps drive up wages, which keeps our community going a little bit better than we would if everybody just worked for minimum wage. And I think it's really important to support workers who are in this, blue collar, sort of in a grocery store where you typically would see part-time minimum wage. To see them making more than minimum wage, I think is something that we should really be striving for. I think that's something that's going to bring up all the families in Greenfield, and if we don't support them, it's just going to squash that union, and then it's just going to be a race to the bottom.
Thank you. And I believe we're going to also be discussing minimum wage. Council Mayo.
Having joined the strikers on the line for 4 days straight, I was able to hear a lot of the people, strikers, speak about how this was affecting their families, especially this particular holiday season coming up, is that it was going to really affect them, that they were not going to be able to either travel to meet with other family out of state or in state, or and bring a meal or participate in part of the meal, and it was just going to be a hardship all the way around. So I urge you to support the strikers on the line. Thank you.
Councilor Ellis.
Thank you, President Reno. First and foremost, I do support the friends and neighbors. I have a lot of friends who specifically work at this Stop and Shop. In fact, I'm planning to go visit them tomorrow. I was speaking with one of my friends through Facebook, now that I'm back, and made plans to get away from my work day tomorrow to go up and see them. I just wanted to be clear in the vote that we take tonight. For me personally, because I do support the workers, I do support my friends and my neighbors that work there. I want town employees to know that when we take this vote, because I've always been of the mind that since we have to fund contracts for our city union employees, that to take away from the executive side his ability to negotiate and essentially put pressure on the executive side from the council, who ultimately has to fund the contracts. I always tried to stay out of most union resolutions because of the appearance from the town employees that we were standing up for outside unions but not inside unions. So I want that to be clear to the people who are watching, so that if anyone thinks that if someone doesn't vote for it or someone abstains from it, has nothing to do, at least in my case, with whether I support or don't support any union or any person who is a part of a union, because I wholeheartedly do, as a person and as someone who is a private citizen, I support that wholeheartedly. I feel, and I have heard from other people in unions in town, that it's hard for them to see us make resolutions for outside unions when we typically don't make resolutions for our inside unions, and that sometimes they feel a little bit slighted. So I know that may be an unpopular statement, but I just felt like I had to make that statement tonight, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Alice. Councilor Stemple.
I just want to echo what Councilor Alice said, simply too, because I think there's been situations in the past where resolutions to support other unions have come before us, and we either didn't take them up for those reasons specifically, and so it is challenging for me to not support a union, but also my father's a union or retired union laborer. But for me, it's if we're supporting one, it's really hard not to support all. And so I will be voting for this, but just know if I've ever not heard or not taken up, it's really hard to take your role as a counselor and put that forth at this as a body. And making sure that we're being fair.
Thank you. Councilor Burson.
It's an honor to support this resolution. Simply put, irrespective of the flag, this is probably the most direct and moral thing we've done this evening. That will have hopefully immediate effect on our neighbors, our friends, brothers, sisters, cousins, relatives, especially at this time year. I make no bones about it. I think what's going on in connection with this particular situation is pretty outrageous in terms of the benefits and in terms of the wages. We don't have any, authority, or do we want any, to interfere with the collective bargaining process. But being on record in supporting of social justice is something that we should be about. So I say I'm honored to support this.
Thank you. Councilor Sund.
I just, I appreciate what you brought forward. But I support all unions. This one, the town unions, as well as Stop and Shop and every other union. But I just want to make sure when we comes up with the police and firemen that we support them 100% as well as these.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And, whoa. Councilor Alice?
I have some new business, if it's...
Oh, yes. Sorry, I was looking at the first reading.
I was trying to forestall that.
Yeah.
As those folks who are still here and who may be watching at home, a wonderful person and a friend, Dick Henry, passed away. And aside from being just a great person with a big smile and always happy to talk to you and see you, and always had time for everybody. He was a Board of Assessors member. He was a poll worker for probably as long as I could vote. Served the town, was involved in many civic organizations, the Grange, etc. I'd like to make a motion that we dedicate a page in our minutes to the memory of Dick Henry.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Thank you, Councilor Alice, for making this. Dick was also a really active member of the Democratic Town Committee for a long time, and I'm really, really sorry to hear about his passing. Thank you. Councilor Sun.
Yeah, he was a good friend of mine. I've known him for a number of years, and my wife and Dick and Ruth worked together on different things, and couldn't ask for a better person to talk to. And he went to the Elks Club almost every Thursday for lunch, and community with all the veterans there, and well, I'll miss him.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. I just wanted to share with the council before we get on to this very long first reading that from the town of Buckland, the Judds, as some of you may know, Joe Judd, who was the, I don't know what the position was, it was like a really important position, moderator of the town and various positions. He and his wife, if they're out there tonight, my friend Linda, were watching our town council meeting last time, and Linda told me that they could not believe how civil and professional our Greenfield City Council is. So I just wanted to pass that on. It came from another town. Thank you, Linda and Joe. I wanted to share it with everybody, and thank you all. Well, here we go. Councilor Wheeler, first reading.
Thank you, councilors, in advance for your patience. City Council, first reading, April 17, 2019, the sum of $9,965 be transferred from the reserve fund to the audit account 010013605301. The following sums be appropriated from the contractual stabilization fund and/or stabilization fund to fund retroactive provisions of contract agreement United Public Service Employees Union, DPW, and Central Maintenance, $99,386.75. Greenfield Police Union, Mass Cop Local 470, Unit A, $31,760.72. FY20 capital budget. The sum of $90,000 be appropriated from the Building Maintenance Stabilization Fund for City Hall brick and chimney repairs. The sum of $65,000 be appropriated from capital stabilization for the replacement of SCBA cylinders for firefighters. The sum of $550,000 be appropriated to hire the architect and engineering firms to develop plans for a new fire station. The sum of $25,000 be appropriated for roof leak repairs at the Greenfield Middle School and at Four Corners. The sum of $100,000 be appropriated for asbestos remediation at Four Corners, closets and cubbies and Federal Street School, tiles in accordance with the HERA plan set forth by the district. The sum of $80,000 be appropriated for the replacement of stair treads in the middle school. The sum of $125,000 be reassigned from the excess funds of the Hurricane Irene bond to replace one elevator at Federal Street School. The sum of $30,000 be appropriated to replace guardrails. The sum of $120,000 be appropriated for the repair design for the Wiley Russell Dam. The sum of $111,000 be appropriated for the design and engineering of Sanderson Street. The sum of $175,000 be appropriated to repair and repave Green River Road from Plain Road to Eunice Williams Drive. The sum of $30,000 be appropriated for the replacement of Greenfield Middle School playground equipment. A sum of $550,000 be appropriated for the Sewer Enterprise Fund portion of the water meter replacement program. The sum of $100,000 be appropriated for sewer main replacement and repairs. The sum of $300,000 be appropriated for sewer I&I evaluation and repairs. A sum of $675,000 be appropriated for the replacement of Leidenwood's pumping station. The sum of $4,100,000 be appropriated to build an anaerobic digester. The sum of $600,000 be appropriated for the Water Enterprise Fund portion of the water meter replacement program. The sum of $100,000 be appropriated for water main replacement and repair. The Greenfield City Council appropriate the amount of $150,000 to purchase installation-related equipment for GSET expansion and customer installation. FY20 operating budget, legislative, $72,112. Executive, $253,994. Financial administration, $1,026,324. Operations support, $821,297. Licensing and registration, $241,537. Land use and development, $117,277. Other general government, $1,679,345. Public safety, $6,818,442. Education, $19,873,138. Public works, $2,904,227. Human services, $872,190. Culture and recreation, $832,592. Debt service, $2,304,336.
Miscellaneous and total operating budget? Oh, I'll say it. Miscellaneous, $13,465,359. Total operating budget, $51,282,170. No. Yeah. Thank you. Motions for reconsideration? Motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? Opposed, abstained, we are adjourned. Thank you, and good night.
All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.
Yeah!